This year's Portland Sunday Parkways season is kicking off this Sunday, May 17th. Presented by Kaiser Permanente, you can join your community in biking, walking, scooting, rolling, whatever, in car-free streets for 5 glorious hours starting at 11 a.m. And this time, it's in Southwest Portland. There'll be food, family-friendly activities, community booths, local vendors, and live entertainment for a 2-mile stretch, including Gabriel Park, Village Park, Multnomah Arts Center, Multnomah Village, and Spring Garden Park. For the full Sunday Parkway schedule, event information, and ways to get involved, head over to portland.gov/Sunday Parkways. That's portland.gov/Sunday Parkways. I know Portland takes pride in our DIY culture, but you don't always have to do it yourself. TaskRabbit has been helping Rose City residents for over a decade with everything from furniture assembly to minor home repairs. And their app is super easy to use, so you can quickly get paired with a list of skilled taskers in your neighborhood who've already been rated and reviewed. Plus, there's transparent pricing, so there are no surprises at checkout. Cross those nagging home to-dos off your list, enjoy your weekend, download the TaskRabbit app, or visit taskrabbit.com today. Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about why some at City Hall are working to pass an even more stringent law banning masked law enforcement, even though the state just passed its own earlier this year. Plus, we're reviewing a national luxury travel magazine's recent takes on our city. Joining me today are District 2 Portland City Councilor Samir Kanal and Willamette Week City Hall reporter Sophie Peel. Hey guys, how's it going?
Great, thanks for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning. So glad to have you both on the show. Samir, is this your first time on the show?
It is. I feel like I know you because I listen, but I haven't been on with you yet.
That's so cool. Welcome. Now, before we jump into the news, I usually ask an opening question so any listeners can get to know our guests a little better. And today's is based on a Portland Reddit thread from a few days ago that really popped off. Reddit user Blake Dreary asked, if you had to name your child after a Portland street, what would you pick? Sophie, we can extend this to kittens if that's easier to imagine.
Hey, that feels particularly targeted. Just because I talked about my cat once doesn't mean I hate children.
No, just because your cat is constantly tip-tapping on your laptop while you're on the show doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, well, he's very smart. What can I say?
Okay, so do you guys have any street names that are popping in your head?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I have two different scenarios. I think Quimby is a very, very cute name for either a girl or a boy. And my office is on Quimby Street, so I just see that name all the time. So it's the first one that popped into my head, and I thought it was really cute. I live in the Alphabet District, and I think all like the very distinguished last names like Overton, Northrup, Pettygrove, Thurman, Raleigh, like they're not suitable child names, but I also think it'd be very cute to have like a little distinguished boy named Pettygrove.
He's going to be wearing a bow tie.
I just think that's a very, like, with glasses, and
Totally.
He's got to be a nerd. I would love a little nerd. Anyways, I just think that'd be really cute.
Well, what about you, Samir?
I got to go with the original pronunciation for it, which is Albina. That's, named after the wife and daughter of the guy who originally owned the area back in the post-Civil War era. Obviously, now we pronounce the area Albina, but back then it was Albina.
You can like nickname her Bean if it's a lady. It's such a cute nickname. Okay, so I have two answers. If I was feeling smug and pretentious, Hawthorne. It's just like, again,
super
same
pretentious.
thing.
Yeah.
Shut up.
So,
But it's so cute.
So is Pettygrove.
I know I'm not fighting you. And then if I relied on my like comedic base instincts, which is made up of purely Simpsons references, it would be Flanders. Because Flan is also a super cute nickname. These are good ones, by the way, you guys. I think we knocked this one out of the park because I was reading people's answers and they were like, Second Ave. And I'm like, shut up. It's a terrible
like
kid's name.
24th. I almost said that, but then I was like, that's not even funny.
I'm glad you caught yourself, Sophie.
I was gonna come up with some sort of joke about failing and going streets, and it didn't work.
Oh, that's
didn't
fun.
work.
Failing would be fun.
It's a good way to lower expectations, on your child, right?
Oh my God. Well, thank you both for your answers. On to the news. Samir, you wanted to come on the show to talk through your ordinance, which you've noted would be a complement to the state's existing law enforcement mask ban, House Bill 4138. Before you explain how your proposal would complement this existing bill, I wanted to quickly summarize what we have on the book so far. So HB 4138, which was vetted by our state's legal team to have the best shot at holding up in our court, states that all law enforcement officers operating in Oregon, including local, state, and federal agents such as ICE, are required to wear uniforms that clearly display their name or ID number and agency. The exceptions are masks used for undercover work, tactical operations such as SWAT, or for health reasons. This law also allows residents to file lawsuits if they witness violations, meaning people will have to hire their own private attorneys, and they can only sue agencies the agents work for, not the officers themselves. And the law acts as a direct response to mass federal immigration agents operating in the state. And so far, the federal response is that they're not complying, citing the supremacy clause and arguing that such a ban would put federal officers in danger. A federal judge has also previously ruled that such bans cannot apply to federal agents, but Oregon supporters are hoping that this legislation will withstand challenges since it's being applied to all law enforcement rather than just the federal officers. Now, Samir, you've been quoted by the press as saying that the state law, good, totally fine, but just the ground floor. We need more to build on it. And that's where the amendment you've been championing comes in, which is now moving on to a second reading and a final vote next week?
Week after next.
Okay, so could you explain what exactly your city amendment would be adding to what I just stated, the existing state bill?
Yeah, so the state bill actually, first and foremost, it requires the cities to act. It requires us to have a policy on the books. So the first thing it does is fulfills that requirement. It also, as you mentioned, it's a floor, not a ceiling. So you're allowed to go a little bit further if you want in specific ways. And so we have clearer, I think, directions as to identification. But the big changes come around adding two additional components. One is verification of potential imposters. The idea that if somebody claims law enforcement authority, but it's not immediately obvious, well, they're doing something that requires law enforcement authority, like detainings, that Portland police have to look into and actually go and see, is this person an imposter or not? And the last piece is documentation for all the mass identification verification, because Portlanders have a right to know who's policing them. And so the way you get there is when there is an interaction, when there is even an exception that you mentioned, it's 20 degrees out or something like that, that we're noting that down. So it's transparent with the public about who is operating in this area, and to look into it later.
I'm curious, I think there's, actually, I have a lot of questions, I guess, which I think some of these I've posed to you, Councilor, before. But one, I've been trying to imagine sort of what this would look like in real time, in practice. So let's say there's an unidentified person who's claiming they're an ICE agent and they're interrogating someone, or they have, thrown them in the back of a truck, God forbid, but we know it happened. So let's say that happens and there's a Portland police officer that witnesses this happening. Can you sort of take me through, and let's go sort of worst case scenario, because I think we have to contemplate sort of worst case scenario, what if that person really was an imposter and the Portland Police Bureau documented it, decided to take some sort of action. Can you sort of walk us through what that process would look like to its logical conclusion?
Yeah. So person A is detaining person B, and it's not clear the person A is a law enforcement officer. Another option, by the way, because some of these interactions happen quickly, so it can also be a situation where someone's trying to get into a building, and because there's this physical barrier, doors locked, there's enough time for a PPV response to actually occur. So the first thing they're going to do is look into it, assess the situation, let their supervisor know that they're dealing with a potential verification, call to see the agency if they're going to effectively own that person. Meaning, we have people that we call in the federal government, the FBI, other agencies as well, to say, hey, do you have people operating the same? because a lot of the time there's something called a deconfliction notice. It's a notice that one agency will tell another agency, hey, we're operating in this area. So if you come across somebody who may be armed or something, we're not going to end up misinterpreting who that is. But federal government often doesn't do that. So first step is call. And maybe they're going to say, and this has happened before, yeah, we have people operating in this area. And that's effectively it. So if that's not immediately available, they're not willing to confirm, they don't answer the phone, whatever, then it's about assessing the situation. Is this person in a uniform? Are they 4 people getting out of a unmarked vehicle, but 3 of them are in uniform? The 4th one's probably with them, right? Those sorts of things, it's exercising judgment. It's not a prescriptive list. It's things to look at. And if there's still not enough information there to determine that that person is a law enforcement officer or not, they can also ask, let's say, hey, can you show me that sort of thing? It's up to the individual police officer in that scenario, because the purpose of this whole step, the preliminary investigation, is to determine if there's reasonable suspicion that a crime is being committed, or that it's about to be committed. And only if that reasonable suspicion exists, which is the individual PPB officer's decision, then they would continue on to a full investigation. And that's where you'd basically treat it the same way any other potential impersonation. The police officer has discretion, are you going to arrest or detain or whatever the particular next steps would be. And it's each situation dependent. So it's not prescriptive in terms of you have to do it this specific way. But if it is an impersonator, we've seen positive examples of their involvement in this PPB. There was a impersonator at 7-Eleven in the Southeast Portland, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, in which that person was detained, arrested a couple of blocks away that night. So there are good examples of this as well.
So like, let's say it sounds like the actual police officers have quite a bit of discretion as to like what circumstances they're looking at to make the decision of whether or not there's enough verification, or like, okay, let's say there's 3 ICE agents and then there's a 4th guy with them and they're like, okay, cool. Like he's probably an ICE agent. Like, and given the police unions like vary, and maybe this has changed in the past few weeks, but my understanding as to where the police union was at least 3 weeks ago is very, very much against this whole thing. Like, if police officers were just like, I have no interest in following this ordinance, like, why couldn't they just, in every scenario that they see, even questionable scenarios, be like, it's probably fine, and just, like, choose not to, I guess, report back to their supervisor? Like, are there any checks and balances in the ordinance that could prevent sort of that discretion from going too far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't build proposed policy on the idea that police officers are not going to follow law. I think our starting position, our assumption is that important police officers are going to follow the law. But there are also specific things that would answer, I think, the concern we're raising, which is there's documentation. So if, for example, in the example we used earlier, the Portland police officer says, I didn't have reasonable suspicion, I disengaged, they are going to have to put up an incident report, just like they would for any other incident, and explain. And that provides a opportunity for their supervisor, but it's also public, to look at, what was the criteria here. No policy is perfect. If we're seeing that there's a gap in it after it's implemented, we obviously have the chance to come back and fix it. But we also know that there's training and there's practices and there's culture in the police bureau that develops around certain activities that we're asking them to do, and that can fill in a lot of the potential risks you're raising as well.
So what I'm hearing is that there's going to be a paper trail. But let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to have more with Councilor Samir Kanal and more questions, because I got a couple.
Great.
Did you know May is National Bike Month? And it's Oregon, so of course we have a ton of ways you can celebrate. Like this Friday, May 15th, is the official Bike to Work Day. And the Oregon Department of Transportation wants you to stay safe out there. So if you haven't been on your bike for a couple of seasons or are new to the area, get reacquainted with our local traffic laws. Bicyclists follow the same rules as motorists. Remember to remain alert, always wear a helmet, use lights, and wear bright reflective clothing, especially for night riding. And if you don't know your bike hand signals, learn them. They keep you and everyone on the road safe, including other riders. For more tips on how to stay safe and more on statewide events, head over to OregonBikeWalk.org. That's www.OregonBikeWalk.org.
When the unexpected happens, a serious injury, a catastrophic crash, or even a wrongful death, the impact isn't just personal. It can affect families, neighborhoods, and the safety of our entire community. In those moments, you deserve more than legal help. You deserve advocates committed to making Portland safer for everyone. At Diamore Law Group, you're not just getting a lawyer. You're getting a trial team led by veteran attorney Tom Diamore, who has spent over 30 years holding corporations, negligent drivers, and unsafe institutions accountable. From investigating what went wrong to bringing in experts and taking cases all the way to trial, they do the work it takes to protect their clients and prevent the next tragedy. And you don't pay unless they win. Contact Diamore Law Group at 503-222-6333 or visit Diamore Law to schedule a free consultation. They're here to stand up for individuals and for a safer Portland.
Samir, so as we were discussing the plan for the enforcement, it's up to the officer who is responding, right? But there will be a paper trail. And I know Sophie has some follow-ups on that.
Well, I just have one question. Like, since it is up to officer discretion, if they see something suspicious, like, I mean, honestly, can't they just pretend not to see it and then there's no paper trail? Like, if they see something and in their head, they're like, I don't think that was anything. Like, I could see them just saying, well, I don't think there was anything, so why would I document it? Like, no one would necessarily know, right? Like, do you foresee that happening?
I think that's a risk that has been brought up a couple times before. It's something that you can see happening in almost any situation in a hypothetical sense.
That's any law, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that the idea behind this is that we are giving counsel direction to this bureau and saying, we'd like you to be involved in this scenario. And again, it's up to the officer whether reasonable suspicion exists. That's a federal legal standard for whether or not to continue on. But in terms of looking into it, we do require a call to notify the supervisor, and we do require a call to a dispatch center of the claimed law enforcement agency.
So you had mentioned that, first step, if there is, reasonable suspicion, is like calling the law enforcement agency that you think might have this person under their umbrella. Let's say ICE, and I don't know how responsive they are to like local law enforcement, or, ICE is like a wild entity right now. Let's say they don't answer the phone, or, a Portland police officer calls them and is like, hey, can you verify that this person, even though they didn't have identification, is like, they're probably in this area. And ICE is like, we're not telling you shit. But the Portland police officer is still like, I think there's something there. Like, if, let's say they do go arrest, and worst case scenario, they weren't impersonating and they were an agent, like, what is the risk there, I guess? Is there a risk, or is it like, okay, you proved yourself once we arrested you, like, you're good to go?
Yeah, the short answer is what you said at the end is correct. If at any point through this process, there's authority that's been proven, and there's a lot of ways to do that, or just reasonable suspicion is dispelled, then that any direct interaction that could involve, the person not being free to go, it has to end immediately. What happens before that is a lot of optional things to assess the situation. And in addition to the required piece of making the phone call or notifying a supervisor. And it's things to look at, and it gives an illustrative list in the text. It's like, see if they have a judicial warrant. Maybe they're not showing a uniform, but they have the warrant in their hand. So they're talking about, maybe they have not a uniform, but a visible badge. There's a lot of different things to look at to assess the situation.
Okay, so my question is this. As we've seen with these videos of some ICE officers, sometimes communicating with them can be very difficult. In the concern, I think the mayor's brought up, and others, that escalation piece where you're putting in some city workers to come in and verify they're not getting the answers they need from whoever. There's no, again, any kind of verification on their persons, on their car, so they have to continue this conversation with them, and things escalate. And I think that is like the major concern from a lot of people is that escalation. And I'm curious how you see that going.
Yeah, I mean, I think we ask some of our employees, specifically police officers and other first responders, to put themselves into situations where there may be someone committing a crime all the time. That's a common practice. That's why we have a police department, right? And so we're looking at, from a law enforcement perspective, asking them to respond when someone is saying this person's claiming to be law enforcement, but they're not, obviously. So that's not a real change in any scenario. But what is a change is ensuring that that's the practice when someone is calling specifically another law enforcement agency's authority. In the scenario you mentioned, at any point when that's proven, there's disengagement. There's no interference in authorized law enforcement by, for example, the state patrol or their county sheriffs or anything like that. There's not intervention to prevent people from doing legitimate law enforcement. But what there is saying, in order to claim that you are going to be able to use that authority, you have to first prove that you have it, or at least dispel the reasonable suspicion that you don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Another concern the mayor has brought up, and others, is that this could bring unwanted attention by the Trump administration. And I'm curious what you think of that note.
Yeah, I mean, Portland's had the eye of Sauron on us from the federal government for a long time. Since the presidential election where, Donald Trump was not popular in Portland's election results, So what we're going to see is that the federal government's always going to move the goalposts. And they've said, if you don't do everything we want, we're going to punish you. Roll back DEI or we'll take away federal funding. Stop being a sanctuary city or we'll roll back federal funding. End reproductive freedom in your state or we'll roll back federal funding. And we can't control that. We can't prevent them from behaving the way they're going to do. And we shouldn't legislate based on the fear that they're going to try to retaliate to us. All we can do is serve the people that we were elected to serve, their support voters. And my broader point on it for this ordinance is we are very limited in what we can do. But what we can do, we have a moral obligation to do.
So I know, I have tried to press the police union on what specifically is it about this ordinance that you really don't like. And again, the PPA president, Aaron Schmaltz, has said it has nothing to do with the content. It has everything to do with our position, the union's position is that these changes can't be made without them being bargained first. And I had written about an article about this because you both had cited different state laws saying, your team is saying, no, it can be bargained after the fact, after we pass this. And the union is citing different case law saying, no, it has to be bargained before. It sounds like you guys have not agreed on which case law maybe, supersedes the other one. But I'm curious. Is there more than just this bargaining piece that you think the police union has an issue with this ordinance? Or do you think it really is just that simple for them?
I think that is the concern itself that they're raising is a real concern they hold. I believe that to be true. There may be other things that they're concerned about. They've certainly brought up other things in the past about this policy before the state got involved. With relation to bargaining, there's several places in the text where it says that as it relates to specific bargaining units, it's not going to directly be implemented until we comply with our bargaining obligations. Mm-hmm. And so there's different ways you can bargain. You can bargain before something is implemented. There's also bargaining that you do where it's agreed that it will be implemented, but you have to bargain the impacts of it on the union and its members. And we have a bunch of lawyers. They have lawyers. They're going to figure all that out after the fact, what our specific bargaining obligations are. I'm not sure that the lawyers have a consensus position on that. But the question is really, do we do this through ordinance or not? And the way that they're suggesting going about it is the idea that you can't bargain a policy proposal that doesn't exist yet. And until we pass it as a council, it's not something that gets into the conversation. The suggestion they're making is that the city council can't even propose a policy without prior approval from them. And that would mean that we are not the legislative body of the city, the PPAs, which I reject. The mayor is able to put things on the table in bargaining, and certainly the council can as well. But the way we do that is by vote.
Got it. Okay, last question I have. Let's say this policy passes, and in a year from now, the data shows that over the course of 365 days, there were 2 reports about people that may have been imposters, and neither one, were substantiated or went forward. To you, would that mean, great, this stuff isn't happening, and so, it's not necessarily a concern? Or would your concern be, I think maybe police officers aren't really taking this ordinance seriously or not really following through with, what we laid out?
Yeah, in terms of the verification of potential imposters piece, we don't think it's a common thousands of times a day kind of occurrence. We do think it's a small number of times, but that each one of those should be addressed fully. If there's 2 in a year, what I would do is ask the same people who've been coming to me from the beginning of this process saying, we've been asking for help and not getting it, and saying, is that still happening? If I'm not hearing that and I'm seeing 2, then that means 2 is 100% of what we're looking at. If on the other hand, we're seeing 2 and there's people say, actually, we've been asking and we're not getting it, then we'd circle back and talk to the police chief and say, hey, how can we make sure that this is being implemented? What are the needs you have? What are the structures that need to change, or the training, culture, practices, whatever, to help get there? And we know that things aren't always implemented 100% on day one. So I have patience for how we're going to get from here to there. But I also know that the community often sees things in your own neighborhood that I can't see, that, leadership of the Bureau isn't necessarily seeing either. And so when we hear from our constituents, we have to try to respond to that. And that's what I would do to compare and see, is that number realistic?
Well, Councilor Samir Kanal, thank you so much for your time, for talking through this ordinance. Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, I'm just going to do a tone shift. I'm going to do what I do, and I'm going to completely derail this conversation. Okay, guys, so Lizzie Acker from The Oregonian spotted an article written by the parent company of not only The Oregonian, but Bon Appetit and a bunch of other publications. She noted that less than a year since the President of the United States told reporters, Portland is burning to the ground. I was going to do an impersonation there, but I practiced it and it's so bad, so I'm not going to do my terrible
I really want to hear it.
No, Portland is burning to the... It's terrible. Forget it. Okay, so anyhow, Condé Nast Traveler, the luxury magazine, wrote, after a few rough years, the Rose City is back, and with new places to stay, shop, and of course eat, now is the time to go. According to the writer of the article, we're crushing it as a city. We're back, which Hannah Wallace, that's the writer, we need all the help we can get, so thank you for writing that. I wanted your opinions on some of these things that she wrote about, okay? This isn't a snarky, just so you guys, this is a snark, because we're thankful, okay? That is the basis of this discussion. We're grateful that we're being written about in a positive light. But here's the inventory places to love, according to her. Lovely's 50-50. Yes, right? Xiaoye and Cascada, which is that new kind of spa, also has a restaurant, might be a hotel, I think, and it's fancy. But here's what caught my eye personally. The very first neighborhood she is persuading out-of-towners to explore is St. John's because of the bridge. She noted just 3 things: the bridge, Gracie's Pizza, which unfortunately is closed. It just closed a couple weeks ago. Could have been that it was open when she was writing it. You know how slow editors can be, and that's fine. And this is the part where she's like, and you gotta go to Slim's.
I think she just listened to CityCast.
You think she's just
all you do is talk about St. John's.
She's just these people cannot stop talking about St. John's. It must be a really hot neighborhood where literally everyone's like, will you shut the fuck up about St. John's? But anyhow, so she also mentioned Sunnyside, Alberta Arts District, Boise, and Central East Side. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the article, but I'm curious what you think of having St. John's be the face of Portland now. I mean, are you guys comfortable with that?
Obviously, I'm biased. D2 represent, and I'm going to stand for D2 throughout this. But yeah, as someone I live in North Portland, I spent a lot of time in St. John's. I hope she probably wrote it before this past weekend, which was St. John's Day with the parade and the bazaar. But absolutely. And it's not just the bridge. It's not just Slim's. There's other good pizza there too, of course. Shout out to Signal Station, for example. But yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, it's great.
That's my fave. That's absolutely my fave.
It's a lot of good off.
I know Samir is a real North Portlander because he called St. John's Bazaar St. John's Day, which is what we call it here. We just call it St. John's Day. We go, happy St. John's Day.
I like St. John's. I haven't been there for a year. I think last time I went, it was last summer, and I was at Cathedral and was swimming in the water off of the dock. And then my partner was like, did you know that there was a dead body that just went down the river yesterday? And I said, no, why are we in here?
So that's
how that conversation went. Yeah. And then I stayed in. I was like, okay.
You're like, it's a river. It flows.
Oh, whatever.
You know what they say? When you step in a river, you never step on the same river. That was yesterday, baby. Yeah. That was yesterday.
No, I felt like conceptually I should be a lot more upset about it. And I wasn't. because the water felt nice.
So you learned something about yourself. I'm curious,
I did.
like, if not for St. John's, what neighborhood would you have like petitioned to be the first thing that out-of-towners see as like the neighborhood you visit?
I love Boise Elliott, and I love the Mississippi area, and I would say parts of North and Northeast, honestly. Like, I love the Boise Elliott neighborhood.
Yeah, they put Boise fourth. Third is what I'd go with, which is Alberta Arts District. But yeah, I spent a lot of time on Alberta. Boise's probably the one I spend the second most time in. St. John's third. So 3 of the 5 neighborhoods in D2. I just got to point that out.
Nice. Again, if you want to check out the article, we're going to link it in our show notes. I'm curious, listeners, what would you have led with? I can't imagine that everyone's just going to rep their own neighborhood. I'm sure there's better ones out there. Like, honestly, I love St. John's. Not sure if I would have led with that. I'll be very honest. And I love the crap out of St. John's. I think I might have I would have gone with one waterfront of some sort. Like if you're going to show people like the Esplanade, something that just like the river. And I love my little part of the river. It's one of the reasons I moved to St. John's. Like, I love that we have a free boat ramp. I love Cathedral Park for sure. But I don't know, man. I still think it's a solid choice. And I can't believe, I'm sure people are listening. They're like, what? Against St. John's? But I just thought it was an interesting choice. But before we head out, we have some shout outs from our CityCast Portland Neighbors program. One of the perks of being a paying member of the show is the opportunity to shout out a local business or organization that you love. Sophie, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. I have one here from listener Ramona Z that says, I love the Portland Visitor Center on Southwest Harvey Milk Street. It's got everything. The staff is very friendly and always happy to help you find your next adventure.
And I have one here from Marina C that says, shout out to On Point Community Credit Union for community engagement, amazing services, great rates, and being a fantastic employer, truly. Isn't that sweet? Imagine shouting out your boss. You're like...
Suspicious.
Sophie. Sophie.
Blink twice.
Sophie, the City Hall reporter, is already going to look into that. So expect a call, Marina C. Shout out to Ramona Marina. When you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd also be happy to read your shout outs of places that you love in Portland, alongside a bunch of other perks like ad-free listening. You can join at membership.citycast.fm. Samir, do you have a shout out?
Well, I got 2.
Okay.
They had, and they're both about this article. One is just Hannah Wallace in general. Thank you for putting the gloom loopers in their place about Portland. Portland's been great this whole time. Got stuff to work on, of course, but it's been great, and it's good to have the national media recognize it. The other is there's some really good shops that are shouted out in there, but they're all downtown, so wanted to put Black Book Guitars in the mix, as well as Portmanteau Flowers.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and I hope I didn't come off negative. All my St. John'sers that I don't think we deserve to be number one. We deserve to be number one, but I think maybe it's just more shock, where I'm like, us? St. John's?
Every year, St. John's gets slammed in some way. Right now, people trying to take away their fire engine. You know, there's the last year was a community center. We got the library was closed. Everybody, there's a well-deserved chip on the shoulder, I think, in St. John's, so it makes sense. But we keep fighting for it.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, y'all. I really appreciate your time and the questions you brought. And, you know, Samir, I'm so happy whenever a counselor comes on, because I know that this show, we talk about what you guys are doing a lot, and we are humorous about it and stuff. But, you know, we all really we respect what you do, and we know it's a tough job. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'll be back anytime.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Atariani, Julia Fiaioni, Rachel Monahan, Jesse Wiza, Lizzie Goldsmith, Alyssa Castles, and myself. Original music by Jenny Conley and Steven Drizos, and additional music by All the Kimonos. Our ad music is by Sven Lindvall and Sarah the Instrumentalist from Epidemic Sound via Getty Images. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's. Or at, what is it, Black Book Guitars? Black Book Guitars, cool.
You forgot to shout out Sophie's partner, though.
Oh, shit! And also shout out to Sophie's partner, who rushed to bring her laptop charger and her headphones. Without him, we could not have recorded today's show. So thank you so much, Sophie's partner. I don't know his name, Sophie, but
His name is Aaron. Not my boss, just to clarify. People seem to be confused about that. Not dating my boss.
Good.
Very unfortunate that they have the same name, though.
We're keeping all that in.